There was a lot of talk from the last game as to what constitutes casual and not. And it was interesting to hear everyone's different opinions on that. And we could spark up a conversation here as well, I suppose. Do you think that a Golos Field of the Dead deck can ever be power level 5 to 6? A massive thank you to Mango for bringing you today's video via Patreon. Ghired Conclave Exile versus Golos Tireless Pilgrim, Lazav Dimir Mastermind, and Atla Palani Nest Tender. We don't really have all that lower curve in this deck, so I'm not sure the ramp is all that great either, so do I keep that? We can get card draw with Garruk's Uprising, hopefully. There's an equal number of 2, 3 and 4 mana drops, so yeah, I'll just risk keeping that one and hope that we can get into some ramp. And of course draw into another really expensive spell, so we'll just drop the forest and pass. This deck is brought to us by Mango, by the way, a patron of the channel. Supports at the mythic tier, so he's able to give us a deck once a month, and this is the one he's given to me this month. Just a couple of lands from the other two players, and a mana vault from the Golos player. I asked for power levels, I think it was 5 to 6. So hopefully this isn't a troll that's come on to play with us here. We've got our third land, so we can get into the Garruk's Uprising next turn. Maybe even the Aura Shards into a creature. Although it is noteworthy that this player only kept a 4 card hand, so we've only got 3 cards in hand now, so maybe it is fair to get the Mana Vault and into Golos pretty quickly. Through the other two players' turns again, and we are straight into Golos Tireless Pilgrim. And that is a Mirror March, so yeah, just drawing into all the expensive stuff. We'll play a land again, and let's try the Aura Shards. We can maybe deal with this Golos. We'll have to get into a 3 C or less creature next turn if we want to do that. Sakura Tribe Elder would be good to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And then we have a Fires of Yavimaya, so creatures are going to have haste in the Atla Palani deck. Jace's Archivist for the Dimir player, that is the first spell they've cast this game. Inventor's Fair came down from Golos, by the way, didn't cover which land they actually went for. Just making a bunch of red mana so far, so not sure what the tactic is with this Golos deck, but they do get into another colour from the Dark Steel Ingot, 2 cards in hand. Okay, Rampant Growth, I'll take that. No creature for us, so they do get to keep their Golos in play for another turn. We will go for a red source here. Then maybe we get into a land next turn, we can go for our Ghired. Although maybe we want to go for the Garruk's Uprising before then. Worrying about the Aura Shards, so that is Broken Bond. And they did get another land into play, that was Temple of the False God, so they are down to 3 cards in hand. So a couple of players going down to 3 or less cards in hand. Could always be refilled by Jace's Archivist though. So there we see Dimir Mastermind. And I don't think we're seeing many creatures in graveyards at the moment. So likely setting themselves up with the Jace's Archivist. We've got some decent creatures. They could just turn it into a 9/9. There we have ourselves a V2 Ghazi. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just going for Garruk's Uprising here, and I'll try and keep getting into lands. Itali Primal Storm coming down with haste, so hopefully they don't steal a land from us that we're desperate for. Of course, going in for an attack, swinging in at us, and of course they do exile a land from us. It was a tap land at least, but really would have liked to see that land. They get a Swiftfoot Boots, which they will be able to equip this turn. And then there is a Shared Summons as well. Search for a couple of creatures. Now a Field of the Dead coming in from the Dimir player as well, just a couple of different lands away from that being activated. And a Poison Cup, destroy a creature. Don't think I'd really mind a wheel from the Jace's Archivist in all honesty. But they do turn the Lazav into the Itali, so not entirely dealing with that. And that goes into the Golos player. So this time, exiling Boros Signet, wouldn't have minded that either. There's a Purity and a Life's Finale, which I dare say they're not going to cast. And just deciding to take the 6 points of Ghired Commander damage. Guild Globe from Golos. Enters, draw a card, sacrifice it, add 2 mana of different colours. And then, yeah, continuing to fix their mana, that is a Gruul Locker. Okay, and we get into a land. It is a tap land, unfortunately. Yeah, tap lands feel pretty bad. So we'll just go like that. We will get the V2 Ghazi into play. In comes Atlapalani Nest Tender here, and it does have haste. They've got the mana to make an egg token. And the big creatures continuing to come in. The Haunt of Hightower this time. Oof, and getting some really good stuff. That is Garruk Primal Hunter. So Conrad the Grim. This is from swinging in with the Lazav Dimir Mastermind. A Path to Exile as well. Wouldn't mind that being cast on my thing, actually. Should probably go on the Atlapalani, though. And it does. Didn't make an egg on the way out, curiously. Mannequin this time for the Golos player. And then Panharmonicon, so there's obviously some kind of ETB stuff in here as well. Only 1 card left in hand there. Doesn't seem as though the Dimir player is in any rush to give us all cards with the Jace. And alright, now we make a land. Well, better late than never. So do we carry on just setting up with the Mirror March here? Then we could get a bunch of Ghired triggers. Yeah, let's do that. Missed it previously, but the Greater Gargadon has been suspended. Currently 9 suspend counters on it. So, going for Atlapalani again. Just 1 more land and they'll be triggering Field of the Dead. They play themselves a Choked Estuary, so going to start making zombie tokens. And straight away going for an egg token here. They just made a beast token in the previous turn with Garruk, by the way, so have not yet minus Garruk down for drawing a bunch of cards. It will be 6 cards as it stands now. So Itali continuing to trigger over here. That is a Skull Clamp, an Ovia Peshiri, and there is Heartless Hidetsugu. So the Haunt of Hightower has had the other Naya player discard a Shamanic Revelation, now at a 5/5. The 6/6 flyer goes in towards Golos, and the 6/6 commander comes in at us. We actually, they've been going easy on us so far, so spreading the damage. And the Dimir player tapping out after that into a Mind Grind. And they are going to get a bunch of triggers here, including from the Haunt of Hightower. The Sir Comrade is going to ping us a bunch, and then they can decide to turn the Dimir commander into something else if they want to. They did minus down on the Garruk as well, by the way, so they drew a bunch of cards there. And Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, was put into this mono red player's graveyard here. Well, they're playing like a mono red player, but the Wooburg player, they had an Eldrazi, so shuffling that away. And the Lazav Itali has now been turned into Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, so that is Annihilator 4 that we'll have to worry about there. And it has hexproof. And the Haunt of Hightower has turned into a 51/51. So, yeah, Golos pretty much in top deck mode. Let's see if he's got anything for us. So what do they get from that? Yeah, nothing too useful. They get Mere Battle Sphere, a Sol Ring, and a Dark Steel Plate. Magmatic Force, yeah. Just drawing all the heavy hitters, but we don't have the mana to go with it, unfortunately. Let's have a quick look over this deck after this game. I think it might be over sooner than later, especially if this swings in towards us. There is nothing that any of us can do about that, actually. So let's see how many Ghired copies we get. We'll get a Rhino into play, which will trigger the Garruk's Uprising, and we do get a land to make for the turn. And we just lose the flip straight away with Mirror March. That pretty much sums up this game, doesn't it? Open the armory, searching for an aura or equipment. Maybe go for some kind of pacifism effect for the Haunt of Hightower. And the Naya player getting his own Garruk's Uprising into play. He searched for a Lightning Greaves with the tutor, but he's deciding not to play that. Obviously just holding up the 2 mana for the Atlapalani to make another egg token. So just working out the Dimir player's board here. This could deal damage to each player equal to half their total rounded down. but they've got the Purity as well, so if non-combat damage would be dealt to you, prevent that damage, and you gain life equal to the life prevented this way, equal to the damage prevented this way, so they might as well just tap that, deal a bunch of damage to all of us, and gain some life themselves thanks to the Purity. Like I said, they can certainly knock a player out with the Haunt of Hightower. That will be a lot more life. There's a Command the Dreadhorde. They are taking our Soul Warden. There's a Gisela. They're not going to lose life at all, are they, because of the Purity, so they actually gain the life instead, like we just said. Oh, I think they reanimated a Verdant Sun's avatar there. I must have missed that. And also a Terastodon, so I'm assuming these are the things from the Atlapalani player. So blowing up our Mirror March, the Panharmonicon, and this Garruk's Uprising over here. And then activating the Heartless Hidetsugu, so they go up to 141 life, and each opponent is down to 1. Oh, actually, this is a flyer as well, isn't it? So yeah, 1 in here, and 1 in the other direction, and that'll be enough on its own. So let's take a quick look over at the deck list and see what we're dealing with here. So as we can see, the curve on the deck is, I mean, it's pretty flat really. You'd want it to peak at around 3. A lot of my decks peak at 2 now. But you really want them to be peaking at around 3 typically. This is very, very heavy on 4 drops. It's even pretty heavy on 5 and 6 drops. You could take out a few 5 and 6 drops and just add them straight into the 2 drops in the form of ramp. I actually took a commander out of the 5-drop slot, I think it was. I think it was a new Gruul or Naya commander that isn't available on Magic Online yet for some stupid reason. So I actually just replaced that with a 3 visits because I was seeing that it was pretty lacking on ramp. And then I think we're very much struggling on removal as well. We've got Swords and Path. We do not have Beast Within. We do have Generous Gift though, so we've got decent spot removal. But when it comes to board wipes, I'm not really seeing any here. There's a Chain Reaction, and that is about it. Is there a Blasphemous Act in here? I don't think there is. Yeah, should definitely have Blasphemous Act and probably a Wrath of God or something like that. And with regards to the ramp, let's have a look and see how many ramp spells are in this deck. Alright, so here we are. I've separated all the ramp spells out here, and to be honest, a lot of them I wouldn't actually even count as ramp spells. Like Zendikar Resurgent is, I mean, it's a mana doubler, but I wouldn't exactly count it as ramp. So we can shove that over there. Uvenwald Hydra is a really good card, especially when you've got things like Kiki Jiki in the deck to make copies of it. But again, are there any incredible lands that we'd be looking for here? I don't think so. Core Haven's pretty good. But yeah, Uvenwald Hydra, it's pretty much just an awesome creature that just so happens to get you a land as well. I would keep it in the deck, but it's not necessarily ramp specifically. Karametra is a big creature that I would count as ramp because it gets you multiple lands throughout the course of the game. Leafkin Avenger is a little bit too situational for my liking. I mean, you just saw the deck run out there, and it's not exactly guaranteed that you're going to get into a bunch of 4 drops. Explosive Vegetation, definitely ramp, that's a really good spell. Growing Rats of Itlamok, situational as well, but you do have a decent number of creatures in the deck, so would definitely keep that. Kodama's Reach, I would put Cultivate in here as well, which is not in here. Search for Tomorrow can be cast on turn 1, that's another really good one. Boros Signet in here. Arcane Signet is not, for whatever reason. I don't know what Mango has in his collection, obviously, but I would definitely put the Arcane Signet in here, with it being a 3-colour deck. Sakura Tribe Elder, excellent card. I put the 3 visits in here because there are dual lands in the form of the cycle lands, so we can go for those for colour fixing. I would probably put the Nature's Law in here as well, which is exactly the same card. Rampant Growth, I mean, obviously that's ramp, that's where the name comes from, and Sol Ring goes in every commander deck pretty much. So in all honesty, I would put some more ramp in the deck. I don't like it being at 34 lands either, especially when you've got so many big spells. Yeah, Titanical Tomato. I mean, I'd just take cards like that out because you're not guaranteed that you're going to get into lots of creatures. If you've got Avenger of Zendikars and things like that, then fair enough, but you don't have a means of making an absolute cartload of tokens with the greatest of ease. And then, yeah, I'm just going to go through some of these higher CMC sections here and try to just lower the curve on this and up the mana count in the form of ramp. Song of the World Soul is one of those that's... Yeah, I love the idea of it, but it is just a 6 mana do nothing spell. Like, it doesn't do anything, literally anything on its own. And whilst we're struggling in the 6-drop slots, you've just got stuff in here that actually does something, so I'm going to take that out. 5 to 6 in the 6 CMC slot is better, I think. There's every chance that Mirror March doesn't do anything either, like it didn't in that previous game, so that might come out as well. But we'll see for now. Garruk Primal Hunter, excellent card draw and a token generator. Soul's Majesty, I would actually put in the place of that. Return of the Wild Speaker, I think it's called. Yeah, draw cards equal to the greatest power amongst non-human creatures you control, so the only downside being that it has to be non-human, unlike this, but it's an instant as compared to Soul's Majesty, and Return of the Wild Speaker has an overrun effect on it, which could help replace the ultimatum that we just got rid of, so it's just a better card 99% of the time. Coercive Recruiter. Yeah, I mean, I could see that because you want to make token copies of things, gain control of creatures, and then maybe make token copies of your opponent's creatures somehow. It's a little bit too many hoops to jump through for my liking. Thalia's Lancers, search for a legendary card, reveal, put it into hand. I'll have to look at how many legendaries you actually have. You've got Aurelia and Gisela. I mean, they're worth looking for on their own. There's Delina as well from the new D&D set. Shalai as well, so you've got decent targets for the Thalia's Lancers, so we might be able to keep that in here. Yeah, Tristani as well, another really good one. And then there's the Garruk Primal Hunter as well, so yeah, if you were only running a couple of legendaries, then I wouldn't keep this, but it is a really good one, plus it's a good body and you can kiki-jiki that, so yeah, that's probably worth keeping. Angel of Sanctions is decent as well, because you can populate the embalmed token. Yeah, that's probably worth having. I'm not convinced on this Coercive Recruiter, so I'm going to bin that one as well. And just to lower the curve a bit, I am going to get rid of Mirror March. As much as I like that card, it's just a bit too hit and miss for my liking. And then we've got to tackle these 4-drops. I want to take maybe 2 or 3 cards out of here. I want to keep the legendaries in here because they're obviously good targets for the Thalia's Lancers. That might not be a good enough reason to keep them, but yeah, we'll have a think about that. Momentous Fall. I mean, yeah, it's good, but it's quite expensive. Lithoform Engine. This is another really good card, but I don't think this is the deck for it necessarily. Maybe putting in the Strionic Resonator is better. Is it Strionic Resonator? There's other things at 2 CMC that copy things anyway. I just don't think you generate anywhere near enough mana to warrant having that in there. Helm of the Host, I wouldn't have in the 4 slot. That should be in the 5 CMC slot. So we'll put that in 9 CMC because you've got to play and equip it. Leafkin Avenger, I just don't rate. I'd rather this was just a Solemn Simulacrum, so that it always ramps you no matter what. And then Solemn's a really good thing to get token copies of as well. So yeah, I'll just leave it there for now. I'm not entirely convinced on the Momentous Fall. There's a tiny little bit of a life gain sub-theme, but I don't want to lean into life gain too much on this. I think we need to focus on making a bunch of tokens and going wide on our opponent, or just smashing straight through them. Soul Separator is an interesting one. It's noteworthy there isn't any kind of token doubler apart from the Second Harvest. Parallel Lives and Doubling Season are very expensive, so not every deck is going to run those, of course, but Soul Separator is an interesting one. Might be worth running the, what is it called, the Sun Titan, so that you can get things back like Soul Separator. But yeah, we'll keep that in just for interest's sake. And then this, with the Trample Enabler in Garruk's Uprising, should be able to populate quite nicely. Again, it's situational. Yeah, you're not always going to have a bunch of creatures in play to make this relevant, but again, we'll just keep it in because it is a lower power deck. I want to see a Cultivate in here as well, so let's go for the Cultivate. So then we'll have Cultivate, Kodama's Reach, Search for Tomorrow, the Solemn Simulacrum, Explosive Veggies. I'm not entirely convinced on the 3 visits now that... I mean, 3 visits is okay because you've got the 2 dual lands here. I actually thought you had more dual lands than this. But now that I've looked through properly, I see that you don't. I mean, worst case scenario, you just grab a forest. But I'm wondering about... Well, we certainly want the Arcane Signet. I don't know how much Arcane Signet actually is, but if it's stupidly expensive, if it's gone to like $5 or something, then we could always just put another Guild Signet in there in its place. But we want a decent amount of 2 mana rocks that we can go for, 2 mana ramp that we can go for, because it'll just help the chance along that we can actually get into the higher power stuff here. And then, oh, we've got another couple of legends here. Olvia, Peshiri, and Reese the Redeemed. I think we'll keep Reese the Redeemed, but I don't really rate Olvia. She's like Reese the Redeemed light. Reese can act as a token doubler, a massive populator. So how's about we get rid of that? And then I'm liking the spot removal. Speaking of the life gain from before, yeah, the Soul Warden, it's just like there for being their sake. I know, like I said, there's a little tiny bit of a life gain sub-theme, but do we care that much about gaining life? I don't think we necessarily do, so I'll get rid of the Soul Warden here as well. And then while I remember, that makes room for Blasphemous Act. So already we're starting to see a little bit of a better curve here. Maybe we could go Wood Elves as well. That would give us a body, and we could, in really dire straits, copy it with Kiki Jiki to just ramp us more. And then I do want to add a land as well. I'm trying to make budget-friendly decisions here. I'll tell you what we could do. If we wanted to keep 3 visits and maybe a Sky Shroud claim or something like that, I'll just show you the Sky Shroud. Yeah, not sure how expensive this is either. This was reprinted in Battle Bond, but that was a while ago, so not sure the expense of this one. But you can search for forest cards, and now everyone has access to dual lands thanks to Kaldheim and the snow commons. So as much as I don't like making a bunch of tap lands, do we necessarily mind? It does still fix our colours. Anyway, if you decided to go that route, you could go Sky Shroud Claim, keep 3 visits and Nature's Law in the deck as well. And then that would make the Wood Elves better as well, because all these cards that search for forests specifically can also fix your colours at the same time. So there we see we could add the Arctic Tree Line and the Highland Forest as well, and they are a couple of green jewels that fit in this deck. Oh, there's also Into the North as well. I noticed that you're running a lot of snow basics. I don't know if there was a particular reason for that, but if you have a lot of snow basics, then Into the North is another one. So we could add that, and that would mean that you have 36 lands, and let's count up the ramp now. Yeah, so we can see that is looking like a lot more here. I mean, excluding these cards that maybe you wouldn't necessarily consider ramp in Zendikar Resurgent, Uvalmold Hydra and the Karametra, you've still got 13 ramp cards there, which takes you up to 49. Around 50 of the cards in your deck should be ramp and lands, so that puts you at about the right spot. And then I've separated out the card draw as well. Garruk's Uprising, Trample Enabler and Card Draw. Elemental Bond, one of Green's best card draw spells in the format in my opinion. Same with Garruk Primal Hunter, excellent card draw, especially with some big size creatures. Return of the Wild Speaker, an overrun effect, and draws you a lot of cards at instant speed. Probably one of the best cards in the deck now. Rishkar's Expertise as well is superb. Again, I don't know the price of any of these cards that I've added, so apologies if I've, added a $50 card or something. I don't really follow the price of cards. But yeah, I might want another card draw spell or two, I'm not sure. I'm wondering if, just for the sake of the curve, this Momentous Fall, it goes with that life gain sub-theme that we don't really care about anymore. I'm wondering if instead of that we put in a 3 mana spell that cares about damage. Can't remember the name of it, that's it. It's the Hunter's Insight. Choose a creature you control. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you may draw that many cards. So if we put that there in the place of Momentous Fall, it's another situational card, but if the whole point in the deck is to hit your opponents with big creatures, even if it's just a 4/4 Rhino token, your opponents won't necessarily want to use spot removal on the 4/4 Rhino. So, I mean, worst case scenario, as far as I can tell, you're going to draw 4 cards with this. Same can be said for the Momentous Fall, but there is a massive difference, I find, between 3 and 4 CMC. It just makes all the difference in the world. So, yeah, I think I like the look of that curve a lot better. Just streamlined it a little bit, and I want to see how it runs now. So, Lucky Mango is going to get another gameplay here. Okay, so let's try this again. This time up against Eryximethys the Slumbering Isle, Azami Lady of Scrolls, and Golos Tireless Pilgrim. Yeah, and immediately not getting into the ramp that we just added. Okay, that's better. So we've got 2 of our colours, couple of tap lands we can get out before we get into Wood Elves, and the Wood Elves can get us into the red mana from one of our dual lands. So yeah, immediately making use of that. That's really good. Can't say that I'm going to do multiple gameplays like this for the patrons, but I didn't think that the state that the deck was in previously, I was going to be able to compete with anyone on Magic Online. And I do want to get good games in for the patrons, so I think someone might have just passed through their turn there. Yeah, the Eryximethys player decided to pass through his turn, unfortunately, so hopefully he doesn't scoop here. So we'll just get the tap land out and pass, and yeah, being a good sport about it. A lot of people rage quit when that happens. Brainstorm from the Azami Lady of Scrolls. And the Eryximethys player just dropping a land. We will throw down our tap land. And there we have, might be the reason that he didn't scoop, has a mana crypt, so can still get down a turn 2 Eryximethys, but going for the counter spell onto the fast mana. So just deciding to tap out and pass there, and that means that we will definitely land our Wood Elves, I think. So which tap lands do we have access to? That's a cycle land that we could cycle later on if we want to. That's always a tap land, and that can come in untapped, and it will do because we've got basics. So let's get the snow land into play here. Want to get rid of as many tap lands as possible, preferably. And already we're doing way better here than we were in the previous game. In hindsight, I don't think I kept the best hand anyway, so I might not have given it a fair shake, but we'll certainly give it another go around here. That is a spinning wheel from the Golos player. Lightning Greaves ready for the Azami. Okay, now we're going to play around counter magic here. The mono blue player is shields down, but there's mana being held up here, so maybe we should just go for Trostani here, and then we'll at least gain life if our commander does come into play next turn. Yeah, and of course they had counter magic, so yeah, the blue player's being very liberal with their counter spells here. I'm not sure Trostani warranted a disallow there. And then we'll just punish them for that and poke them for 1. And they do get into their 5th colour in the form of an island, so Golos, Tireless Pilgrim coming into play. Maybe something that was actually worth countering, perhaps. Going in at the right player in the Golos, and that does have Island Walk, so we'll be able to steal some fast mana away from them. And they did get Field of the Dead, by the way. So it might be worth a generous gift onto Field of the Dead. Not taking the Sol Ring, curiously, taking the Mana Crypt instead. So it might be that they've got another counterspell that they want to hold up here. Eryximethys the Slumbering Isle now. Yeah, if they're just going to counter our Ghired, then do we want to cast it into that counterspell that they might be holding up? That's one thing I was thinking of adding, was a Lightning Greaves or a Swiftfoot Boots. Yeah, let's just go for the Delina. So we'll just hold our creatures back at that and try and keep our opponents at bay. Alright. And, yeah, there is a turn 5, Ugin the Spirit Dragon. So, yeah. So there we go, it is a turn 5 Ugin. And they minus down, getting rid of Thada Adel. I was looking forward to running the Delina, actually, so... yeah, that goes down along with our Wood Elves. And they got that from activating the Golos, by the way. That was another thing I was thinking of doing, was screwing up their colours by blowing this up. Yeah, didn't think they'd be getting into an Ugin. Now we have Amnesia. Target player reveals their hand and discards all non-land cards. I have never seen that before. But taking them down to 0 cards in hand, that's pretty brutal. Can't say I mind against a Golos Tireless Pilgrim deck, though. I'd actually be tempted to blow up one of their lands with the Generous Gift to take them off their colours. Alright, so if we get into a land here, alright, well there's a Sundering Growth instead. I was going to say if we get into a land, we could go Force of Vigour and Generous Gift, but we can always just Sundering Growth this thing instead. So what are the chances of them getting into the red mana they need? We could Generous Gift their green lands so that they can't search up colours they need with Cultivate. Pretty spiky, but I mean they've got Golos online with an Ugin, so do I really care about making spiky plays like that? So we'll just take them off their colours there. And maybe we should just go in for Ugin instead, getting blown up. Yeah, I mean in my opinion the Golos shouldn't even be in play at the moment, it should have been countered there. Just goes to show what a misdirected counterspell can do. During the upkeep we'll go after the Ugin, and this way their Elephant token has Summoning Sickness. And they've still got the chance to get into a coloured source that they need to get back into the game. Obviously they're in top deck mode at this point. Get into a black source, they're going to start triggering Field of the Dead. Obviously would have liked to have put Generous Gift on Field of the Dead. And then the Golos going in towards the blue player. And the mono blue player, we've now got Elite Arcanist. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile an instant or sorcery from your hand. And they have exiled a, oh good, Desertion. Ominous Seas from the Rixmathes. And then Hieroglyphic Illumination, that is draw 2 cards, and it is a cycle. Okay, Reese the Redeemed, so I think we can go for our commander and Reese the Redeemed, whilst we do not have a Desertion that is being held up over here. This is assuming that they don't have another counterspell, but instead deciding to let it down. They've got 3 cards available to them over there. Noteworthy that they did not put the Lightning Greaves onto here. And then let's attempt to get ourselves a Reese the Redeemed as well. It's noteworthy how relevant the Wood Elves was. Where is it? Noteworthy how good the Wood Elves was this game, because it's got us into the only source of red mana that we have had this entire game, and we're on turn 7. Not having the best of luck getting into the ramp, even though we put all that ramp into the deck, but yeah, Wood Elves was a real clincher there. Oh, I do not know about that. Why on earth? I just don't know why you would do that. A Boomerang is going to fix the Golos player's colours here. Yeah, Boomerang going onto the Golos for some reason. I mean, it's difficult enough playing against a Golos Field of the Dead deck, but when your opponents are just helping him, like, what are we supposed to do here? So, surprise, surprise, recasting the Golos again straight away. Not only will get a zombie token, but we'll get into some red mana as well, maybe Cascading Cataracts or a dual land of some kind. Yep, just going for a basic mountain, so now we have to worry about Golos again. Shipbreaker Kraken this time from the mono blue player. A Rixmathes the Slumbering Isle coming into play. And then it is an Augury Owl, so luckily we're still going to be able to swing in with the Ghired. So we're still having to deal with this GOT. We shouldn't have had anywhere near this much difficulty with the Golos player here. It should have been given more respect. So what I would like to have done is gone Reese the Redeemed for 6 and make some more Rhino tokens here, but or maybe even gone for God Pharaoh's Gift and get the Tristani out of the bin, but instead we're going to have to hold up Force of Vigour. and we'll blow up the Golos and probably the Lightning Greaves as well. Alright, so let's swing in with the Ghired. So we'll take that in towards the 1-1. Making a copy of the Rhino that comes in tapped and attacking, that can go in towards Golos, and we'll go Force of Vigour on Golos and the Lightning Greaves, so they can't just chump with the Golos there. So managing to blow those things up. So they can obviously just recast Golos really easily here. They can actually recast Golos a few times now. Pretty much the only thing we can do against Golos at this point is keep pointing spot removal at it. That's not really... I'm not entirely sure that's going to happen with a blue and a Simic player in play, but we've got Swords and Path to draw into yet. There's Nature's Claim as well in this deck, so there we go. Golos coming back into play again. I think something else that we're missing in this deck is something like Field of Ruin or Ghost Quarter. Something that can blow up problem lands like Cabal Coffers and Field of the Dead. The Guy's Cradle that comes from Growing Rights of Itlamok. Oh, and of course they've got Mishra's Workshop as well, so that is just another means of getting Golos into play even more times in a row. Our Chaomancer is going to grab an instant or sorcery, so yeah, as bad a play as the Boomerang was before, grabbing back the Boomerang here would be good. Okay, just going for Amnesia, so wanting another player to discard all the cards in their hand. Yeah, I think Boomerang would have been the play there to bounce the Golos back again, because we just need to keep it out of play so that they can't keep activating it. Now a Fabricate. Search for an artifact. And there we go, welcome to Magic Online. I say it every time, I mean you just have to expect it by now because the patrons haven't been available for so many weeks, but if we're playing against Magic randoms, Magic Online randoms, then they're going to scoop early. Doesn't matter if you say don't scoop early or not. This is supposed to be power level 5 to 6 as well, and of course someone brings Golos, Field of the Dead. It's just... people just do whatever they want. And now we've got ourselves a Storm Surge Kraken, so you would assume that this is a Sea Monsters list. So we might as well make a Reese the Redeemed token here. Okay, and we've got a Heat Shimmer there, so we could make a token copy of the Ghired here. If we're going to swing in, we're going to lose Ghired anyway. I don't expect the Simic player to be intelligent enough to not block the Ghired. We could swing Ghired in towards the 5-colour player, and they might just block it with the Golos and it doesn't die. I suppose they'd block with Golos and a zombie, wouldn't they? But having a token copy of Ghired sets us up nicely for Reese. We'll only keep one, but it will come in with a Rhino every time. And we could always put Ghired in the bin and then reanimate it next turn with God Pharaoh's Gift, I suppose. Alright, let's go Heat Shimmer. So then we choose which one we want to keep. We want the token copy. We do not want to put it in the command zone. Comes in with a Rhino token still. And then we swing everything in towards the Golos player, apart from Reese, and we'll just hold back the Elf Warrior, no point swinging that in either. Then Ghired can make a copy of itself. Or do we just want a Rhino token? I don't suppose it makes any difference, does it? Let's just make a copy of a Rhino token, swing it in towards them. Alright, just ganging up on the Ghired, seemingly. So we'll get rid of a zombie there, get rid of one here with the Rhino. We're going to push a decent sum of damage through here. Oh, and... okay. I don't think it's let me reorganise the blockers. Maybe I passed through it, I don't know, but should have had rid of a zombie there. Apparently didn't reorder the blockers there for whatever reason. So, losing the token copy of the Ghired, we are aiming to get the Ghired back next turn. Even if the God Pharaoh's Gift gets countered, we can grab it back with the Soul Separator. Again, holding up mana for the Reese the Redeemed here. So here we go, going up against Golos. I dare say it would have been actually quite a fair game if it wasn't for a Golos Field of the Dead deck showing up. There we have a Seedborn Muse, so... that can come into play. There was a lot of talk from the last game as to what constitutes casual and not. And it was interesting to hear everyone's different opinions on that. And we could spark up a conversation here as well, I suppose. Do you think that a Golos Field of the Dead deck can ever be power level 5 to 6? Because I think that's what I posted this as. Casual 5 to 6, don't scoop early, yeah, so maybe it could squeak into power level 6, but I'm not too sure myself. I wouldn't see that in the lobby and bring Golos Field, unless I was a tryhard. Yeah, that would be interesting to see what everyone thinks about that. Anyway, they only got a couple of lands and the Seaborn Muse, but they do untap so they can activate the Golos every single turn now. Tromokratis. Hexproof unless it's attacking or blocking. Can't be blocked unless all the creatures the defending player controls block it. I mean, you would hope that would be aiming for Golos. Problem is Golos is now very, very difficult to swing into thanks to having that ability held up. And yeah, they do swing in towards the Golos player, so hopefully we'll be able to gang up on him. He needs a few whiffs from the activation. Just jump in with a zombie seemingly, so the Simic player is going to draw a couple of cards here. Might get into an answer. And they, just so happen to have Jingataxius in hand. I thought they were going to be going for the Golos activation there, but nope. They just have Jingataxius. That's the one thing you do have to consider with Golos. Even if you can activate it on your opponent's turn, timing restrictions are still active, so you can't just throw down a creature without flash, but of course Jingataxius does have flash. Gonna give the Simic player a main phase at least, which arguably he shouldn't have done. So in response to all this, I'll just go for the Reese activation and we can pass through. Only going to be one counter away from the Ominous Sea, making a Kraken as well. Throwing in a Sea Dasher Octopus. And that did mutate, so that is now a flyer. It's on the Augury Owl. So a 2/2 flyer, deals combat damage, draw. And we're going to be forced to discard our hand at the end of the turn. I was actually considering whether or not we should go Reese the Redeemed here, but we need to grab our commander out of the bin. Green Sun Zenith would be nice to keep hold of, but let's go for this. So we go through to the beginning of combat. And we get our 4/4 zombie Ghired into play, so that's really good. That means that we can put that safely back in the command zone. Certainly say yes to that. And then that brings a Rhino token into play. The Ghired will have haste here, so we'll probably lose it again in combat. It should have haste. It gains haste until the end of the turn. But it doesn't have haste, why not? If you do create a token that's a copy of the card, except it's 4/4 zombie, it gains haste until the end of the turn. This doesn't have haste, because Magic Online. So, if you run Godpharaoh's Gift, just know that it's bugged and you don't get haste with the token for some reason. Fortunately for us, I don't think it's relevant, but that is really annoying. So we'll just swing in with these 4/4 Rhinos, all in at Golos. So the Rhino token getting ganged up on, will take out the Elephant this time. A zombie on the other one, 8 damage going through here, 2 damage from the trample. So 10 damage, not to be sniffed at. And unfortunately we're going to have to discard the Soul Separator and the Green Sun Zenith. So again, I don't think this is a particularly fair run of the build because of the opponent that we're up against and the opponents that allowed this opponent to go off, but I think we've done pretty well considering. Still disappointed with not drawing into the ramp, but I think that's just been unlucky. It's unlucky that we haven't got into any card draw either. Maybe a Skull Clamp for some tokens and some tokens that might die in combat would be a good idea as well. Anyway, getting into Avacyn, Angel of Hope. Disdainful Stroke, so they do have Counter Magic and Veil of Summer as well. They'll draw a card with the Veil of Summer. So now 7 cards in hand, thanks to the Jingataxius, of course. And they do have the Golos held up, same as ever. Seaborn Muse untaps all the lands. All their stuff is indestructible. Alright, so the 8/8 is swinging in over here. That is just going to get blocked. We will feed our opponent some card draw here. So they draw some cards here. Our opponent has had Castle Vantress in play, so going to scry 2 before drawing, and Curse of the Swine is pretty much the only thing that I can see a blue player getting into. Rift will only help us for a certain amount of time. Could buy us a little bit of time to help go wide though. So the creature goes down, of course, and the Simic player didn't get into anything apparently. Drew 2 cards after the scry, but just went straight through to the cleanup step, so we'll have to discard them. And yeah, it was just a couple of lands, that's unlucky. So let's see here, a second harvest. Are we gonna go wide on our opponent with a second harvest? Well, we could, I suppose. We could double up with this, but I mean, second harvest does the same thing and we're going to have to discard it anyway. We go through to combat, we get a Tristani as well, so we start gaining life. So we might as well make an elf token. I suppose we could have waited for Tristani to come into play before we do that. So we lose out on 1 point of life there, I don't think it matters somehow. God Pharaoh's Gift, we get the Tristani into play like I said. So we get a 4/4 zombie Tristani as well. I'm not going to be swinging in here, everything's indestructible, so there's not really much point. So at the end of the turn, we'll go for the second harvest here. Get another copy of each token that we control. This assumes that it's going to get through counter magic or whatever. It does, surprisingly. Don't know if they're even going to bother activating Golos. Alright, so a bunch of Tristani triggers. We choose to keep... Doesn't matter which Ghired, doesn't matter which Tristani. So we are going to gain a whole bunch of life here, and the other Ghired will come in with yet another Rhino token. So yeah, pretty much our only out here is keeping this board state, hoping Golos doesn't make a bunch of creatures and we can go wide on them, hopefully. I'm wondering now, with a board state like this, if Mango often finds that he has a board state like this, then Shamanic Revelation might be worth including as well. I wonder if the deck more often goes tall than it does wide. I mean, it's a token deck, so you would think it would go wide. In which case, you'd want as many tokens in play, in which case Shamanic Revelation would be better than the Soul's Majesty. So it might be worth putting Shamanic Revelation in here as well. So we end up at 92 life, and didn't even bother to activate the Golos on our turn. But I have no doubt that they will do it here. So activating the Golos again. So we have here an Austere Command, could take out all of our tokens. Explosive Veggies and Mortify. So that is enough for the Simic player. I was going to say I'll hold on as long as the Simic player wants to hold on, because... I don't know, maybe they can get into something that will deal with this, I don't know what, but didn't want to screw over the Simic player, but they decided to leave there. So if they go for the Austere Command on tokens here, which they should do, on, what is it, mana value of 3 or less, yeah, they just wipe the board there, so I think that should be enough for us to call it quits. So yeah, there we go. I like how the deck performed there. I think maybe another card draw spell. I said Shamanic Revelation. I think Shamanic Revelation would be good. I don't like having too many 5-drops. So, is there anything we could send back? Yeah, I mean, maybe the Karametra after all this. Do we have enough creatures to warrant the Karametra? It's not like we can make a token copy of Karametra. Yeah, I think it might have to be the Karametra. It's not like we're absolutely stuffed full of creatures. There's enough creatures to warrant this, but we're not gonna like trigger it multiple times every single turn, which is really what you want to do. I think I'd rather draw into the Shamanic Revelation than the Karametra, potentially. I don't know. It's something that you would have to play a few times and figure out what you want to do. But I certainly would have liked a Shamanic Revelation in that previous example. And that just gives us one more card draw spell. I wanted another card draw spell or two anyway. But this is how I would make slight edits to the deck. Maybe squeeze in a Lightning Greaves as well for throwing Ghired into the red zone straight away. But apart from that, yeah, I think it's looking pretty good there. So... patrons, please don't expect me to be doing this for every single deck. I just wanted to get a good game in with Mango's list, and I think we showed it off nicely towards the end there, so hopefully Mango enjoyed it. Big thank you for supporting the channel at the Mythic tier. You can do that as well by following the link through to Patreon with the link in the description below. Be sure to leave it a thumbs up and share the video with your friends as well, because that really helps with YouTube's algorithms. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.